The first scream tore through the quiet Wyoming dusk like a blade through silk. I stumbled out of the gas station, my hands slick with sweat, clutching a half-eaten Snickers bar as the sky above split open, a jagged, bleeding wound of red light. By the time the second scream hit, I was running, my sneakers pounding the cracked asphalt, chasing a figure I swore I'd never see again. My name's Ethan Carter, 23, a nobody from Casper with a dead-end job and a knack for screwing things up. 2 weeks ago, I was just a guy trying to fix a busted carburetor. Now, I'm somehow betrothed to the king of hell and the world I knew as ash. It started with a Craigslist ad. Some guy selling authentic occult artifacts for $50. I thought it was a joke, maybe a cool prop for my Dungeons & Dragons group. The artifact was a ring, heavy black, carved with symbols that made my eyes itch. The seller, a twitchy dude named Carl, swore it was cursed but harmless. I laughed, handed over the cash, and slipped it on my finger. Big mistake. That night, my apartment shook like it was caught in a tornado. The air burned, smelling of sulfur and regret. And he appeared. Lucian, all 6'4" of him, pale as moonlight, with eyes like molten gold and a smirk that could melt steel. "Congratulations, mortal," he said, voice smooth as whiskey. "You've just claimed the consort's ring. You're mine." I thought he was insane. Then the floor split open, and we fell straight into hell. Hell wasn't what I expected. No fire and brimstone, at least not at first. It was a city, vast and gleaming, built from obsidian and bone, sprawling under a sky that pulsed red like a heartbeat. Demons roamed the streets, some winged, some clawed, all terrifying, but they bowed to Lucian, and apparently to me. The ring on my finger marked me as his betrothed, his Majesty, a title that made my skin crawl. I didn't ask for this. I didn't want it. But Lucian, the king of hell, had other plans. The first week was chaos. I woke in a palace of black marble, my flannel shirt replaced with silken robes that felt like lies against my skin. Lucian was always there, watching, his presence overwhelming yet strangely gentle. He didn't force himself on me, thank God, but his gaze held a hunger that made my heart race in ways I didn't understand. I'd never been with a guy before, never even thought about it. I dated girls in high school, fumbled through a few relationships, but Lucian? He was a storm, and I was caught in it. "Ethan," he said one night, leaning against a balcony overlooking hell's glowing skyline, "you're not a prisoner. You're my equal." His voice was soft, almost tender, but his eyes burned with something ancient, something that scared me as much as it drew me in. I wanted to hate him. I tried, but every time he spoke, every time he brushed past me, my body betrayed me with a warmth I couldn't explain. The demons weren't thrilled about me, though. Whispers followed me through the palace halls. Human, unworthy, weak. Some, like Azrael, a towering demon with wings like shattered glass, didn't bother whispering. "You're a mistake," he hissed during a council meeting, his claws scraping the table. "A mortal cannot rule us." Lucian's response was a single glance, cold and lethal, that silenced Azrael instantly. But I saw the doubt in the other's eyes. They didn't trust me, and honestly, I didn't trust myself. I wasn't built for this. I was a mechanic, not a king. Yet every day, Lucian dragged me deeper into his world, teaching me demonic politics, showing me how to wield the ring's power. It let me summon flames, bend shadows, even hear whispers from the mortal world, but also tied me to him. The more I used it, the more I felt him like a thread pulling tighter around my heart. One night I snapped. "Why me?" I demanded, cornering him in his throne room. "I'm nobody. You could have picked anyone." Lucian's smile was slow, almost sad. "The ring chose you," he said, "and so did I." He stepped closer, his hand brushing mine, and for a moment I forgot how to breathe. His touch was fire, but it didn't burn. It warmed like coming home after a long, cold night. That was when the first attack came. A rebel faction, demons loyal to Azrael, stormed the palace. They wanted me gone, the human taint erased. Lucian fought like a god, shadows and flames erupting from him, but I wasn't useless. The ring burned on my finger, and I unleashed a wave of fire that sent the rebels scattering. When it was over, Lucian looked at me, not with pity, but with pride. "You're stronger than you know," he said, and for the first time, I believed him. But strength didn't stop the nightmares. Every night, I dreamed of Earth, of my mom's diner, my friends' laughter, the life I'd lost. I woke up gasping, the ring heavy on my finger, Lucian's scent, sulfur and cedar, lingering on the sheets. I was falling for him, and it terrified me. How do you love someone who rules hell? How do you love when you're not even sure who you are anymore? By the end of the first week, I'd learned one thing. Hell wasn't just a place. It was a mirror reflecting every fear, every desire, every truth I'd buried. And Lucian? He was the one holding it up, forcing me to look. The second week in hell was when I realized I might not survive this. Not because of the demons plotting my death, though there were plenty of those, but because of Lucian. He was unraveling me, piece by piece, with every glance, every word, every accidental brush of his hand. I wasn't just fighting for my life. I was fighting to keep my heart from betraying me completely. The palace was a labyrinth of secrets, each corridor whispering with voices I couldn't quite hear. I spent my days trailing Lucian, learning the rules of a world that made no sense. Demons didn't just bow to power. They craved it, worshipped it. Lucian ruled them with a mix of fear and charisma, but I was a weak link, a human who didn't belong. Azrael's faction grew bolder, their attacks more frequent. A poisoned dagger in my food, a shadow beast slipping into my chambers at night. Each time, Lucian was there, saving me, his fury a terrifying beauty. But it wasn't enough. I had to prove I wasn't just his pet. Training began at dawn. Lucian taught me to wield the ring's power with precision, not just brute force. "Feel it," he said, standing behind me, his breath warm against my neck. "It's not just fire, it's you." I tried, God help me, I tried. Sparks flew, shadows danced, but every success came with a cost. The ring tightened its hold, binding me closer to Lucian. I felt him even when he wasn't there, his emotions, his thoughts, like a pulse beneath my skin. It was during one of these sessions that I saw him break. We were in the training hall, a cavern of black stone lit by floating embers. I just collapsed, exhausted from summoning a wall of flame, when Lucian knelt beside me. "You don't have to do this alone," he said, his voice raw. For the first time, he wasn't the king of hell, just a man, vulnerable, afraid. I wanted to ask why he cared, why he'd chosen me, but his hand found mine, and the words died in my throat. His touch was electric, and I hated how much I craved it. The rebels struck again that night. This time, they didn't come for me. They went for Lucian, a trap laid in the council chamber, where Azrael had rallied half the court against him. I wasn't supposed to be there, but I'd followed, driven by some instinct I couldn't name. When I saw the blades, the glowing runes meant to bind Lucian's power, I didn't think. I threw myself between him and Azrael, the ring blazing. The explosion of light and heat knocked everyone back, and when the dust settled, Lucian was staring at me like I'd just rewritten his world. "You saved me," he whispered later, in the quiet of his chambers. We were alone, the air heavy with unspoken truths. Why? I didn't have an answer, not one I could say out loud. Instead, I kissed him. It was reckless, desperate, like diving off a cliff. His lips were fire and shadow. And for a moment, hell didn't exist, just us, tangled in a truth neither of us could deny. But love in hell comes with a price. The next morning, Azrael's spies uncover my past. Every mistake, every secret. They spread it through the court. Ethan Carter, the human who'd cheated on his high school girlfriend, who'd failed out of community college, who'd run from every responsibility. Unworthy. They chanted, and the word cut deeper than any blade. Lucian silenced them, but I saw the doubt in his eyes just for a second. It was enough. I started pulling away. I avoided his touch, his gaze, anything that made my heart ache. But Lucian wasn't one to let go. He cornered me in the gardens, a twisted paradise of glowing vines and blood-red flowers. "You can't run from this," he said, his voice low, urgent. "Not from me. Not from yourself." I wanted to scream that I didn't know who I was anymore, that hell was tearing me apart, but his hand cupped my face, and I broke. I told him everything, my fears, my doubts, the way he made me feel alive and terrified all at once. He listened, silent, his golden eyes never leaving mine. When I finished, he pulled me close, his arms a shield against the world. "You're enough," he said. "You've always been enough." For the first time, I believed him. But belief didn't stop the war brewing outside the palace walls. Azrael was gathering an army, and I was the spark that would ignite it. Hell was a crucible, and I was being forged into something new, whether I wanted it or not. Lucian's love was the flame, burning away my doubts, but Azrael's rebellion was the hammer, threatening to shatter me. By the third week, I wasn't just fighting for my place in hell. I was fighting for the man I'd come to love and the world we might build together. The court was fracturing. Demons loyal to Lucian stood firm, but Azrael's faction grew, fueled by fear of a human consort. They call me a weakness, a flaw in Lucian's rule. I wanted to prove them wrong, but every step felt like walking a tightrope over an abyss. Lucian was my anchor, his belief in me unwavering, but even he couldn't stop the whispers. "The king's heart is his downfall," they said, and I wondered if they were right. Training intensified. Lucian pushed me harder, teaching me to wield the ring's power like a weapon. I could summon storms now, bend shadows into blades, but the cost was steep. Each use drained me, left me shaking, my dreams haunted by visions of Earth slipping further away. Lucian noticed, of course. He always did. One night, he found me on the balcony, staring at the crimson sky. "You miss it," he said, not a question. I nodded, throat tight. "I miss who I was." He didn't answer right away. Instead, he took my hand, his fingers tracing the ring. "You're still you," he said finally. "Hell, it doesn't change that. I don't change that." His voice was soft, but there was a fierceness to it, like he was daring the universe to take me from him. I wanted to believe him, but the weight of the ring, the weight of hell, was crushing me. The next attack came without warning. Azrael's rebels struck during a festival, a chaotic celebration of fire and blood. Demons danced in the streets, their laughter sharp as knives, but the air crackled with tension. I was at Lucian's side, trying to play the part of Majesty, when the bombs went off, rune-laced explosions that tore through the crowd. Lucian shielded me, his body a wall of heat and power, but I saw the fear in his eyes. Not for himself, for me. We fought back to back, the ring blazing on my finger. I was no warrior, but I was learning. Shadows bent to my will, cutting through rebels like a scythe. Lucian was a force of nature, his power a storm of fire and darkness, but there were too many. A blade caught my arm, and I stumbled, blood soaking my sleeve. Lucian's roar shook the ground, and in that moment I saw the truth. He'd burn hell to ash to keep me safe. We survived, but the cost was high. Dozens of demons were dead, loyalists and rebels alike. The court was in chaos, and Azrael's propaganda spread like wildfire. The human brings destruction. Lucian shut it down, his authority absolute, but I saw the toll it took. He was fighting a war on two fronts, against the rebels, and against the part of himself that feared I'd leave. That night, we didn't speak. We didn't need to. In his chambers, he bandaged my arm, his touch gentle, but his eyes stormy. "I can't lose you," he said, voice breaking. I kissed him then, not out of desperation, but certainty. I was his, and he was mine, no matter what hell threw at us. But love wasn't enough to stop the war. Azrael's next move was cunning. He didn't attack directly. He went for the mortal world. Using ancient magic, he opened a rift, threatening to flood Earth with demons. Lucian was furious, but I saw the opportunity. "Let me go," I said. "I can close it. I know Earth." He refused at first, but I stood my ground. "I'm not just your consort. I'm your partner." For the first time, he looked at me not as a human, but as an equal. We crossed the rift together, stepping into a Wyoming forest under a starless sky. The air was cold, familiar, and it broke my heart. Home was so close, yet so far. The rift pulsed, a wound in reality, and I felt the ring hum with power. Lucian and I worked as one, his strength anchoring my will. We sealed the rift, but not before Azrael's forces slipped through, vanishing into the mortal world. Back in hell, the air was thick with betrayal. Azrael's escape to Earth was a blow, but worse was the realization that he'd taken something with him, a relic, older than Lucian, capable of unraveling hell's foundations. If he used it, both worlds could collapse. I wasn't just fighting for my place anymore. I was fighting for everything. Lucian was a wreck, though he hid it well. The court saw their king, unyielding, but I saw the man, torn between duty and love, terrified of losing either. "We'll find him," I promised, my hand on his. He nodded, but his eyes were distant, haunted by secrets he wouldn't share. I hated it, but I loved him too much to push. The hunt for Azrael became our obsession. Lucian's spies tracked him to Chicago, a city pulsing with human life and demonic shadows. We crossed the rift again, this time with a small army of loyalists. Chicago was a shock. Neon lights, crowded streets, the smell of pizza and exhaust. I felt like a ghost, walking through a world I no longer belonged to. Lucian sensed it, his hand brushing mine, grounding me. "You're still human," he said softly. "Don't forget that." We found Azrael in an abandoned warehouse, the relic glowing in his hands, a shard of obsidian that screamed with power. He wasn't alone. His rebels had taken human hostages, their eyes wide with terror. I saw myself in them, ordinary people caught in a war they didn't understand. Azrael smirked, his wings glinting. "Surrender, Lucian, or they die." Lucian tensed, but I stepped forward. "Let them go," I said, the ring burning on my finger. "This is between us." What followed was chaos. Azrael unleashed the relic's power, a wave of darkness that tore through the warehouse. Lucian countered, his flames clashing with Azrael's shadows, but I was the wild card. The ring responded to my fear, my anger, my love for Lucian, and I unleashed a storm of light that stunned even Azrael. The hostages ran, and we fought. Me, Lucian, and our loyalists against a traitor who'd lost everything but his hate. I took a hit, a claw raking my side, and Lucian's scream was raw, primal. He tore through Azrael's defenses, but the relic was the real threat. I crawled to it, blood soaking my shirt, and grabbed it. The power was overwhelming, like holding a star. I didn't know what I was doing, but I felt Lucian's strength through the ring, guiding me. Together, we shattered the relic, the explosion knocking us back. When I woke, Lucian was holding me, his face pale. "Don't you dare die on me," he whispered, and I laughed, weak but alive. Azrael was gone, his forces scattered, but the victory felt hollow. The hostages were safe, but Chicago was scarred, and I'd seen the fear in their eyes. Fear of me, of what I'd become. Back in hell, the court was silent. No more whispers, no more doubts. I'd proven myself, but at what cost? Lucian and I stood on the balcony, the city glowing below. "You could go back," he said, his voice barely audible. "To Earth. To your life." My heart twisted. I thought of my mom, my friends, the simplicity of before. But then I looked at Lucian, at the man who'd fought for me, who'd seen me at my worst and still called me his equal. "I'm not going anywhere," I said, taking his hand. The ring glowed, warm against my skin, and for the first time, it didn't feel like a chain. It felt like a promise. The war was over, but the scars remained. Hell was quieter now, the rebels crushed, Azrael's name a fading echo. Yet I felt the weight of every choice, every life lost, every moment I'd chosen Lucian over the world I'd known. I was no longer just Ethan Carter. I was Majesty, consort to the king of hell, and I was still learning what that meant. Lucian and I rebuilt, not just the palace, but the trust of the court. Demons who'd once sneered now bowed, their eyes wary but respectful. I wasn't one of them, and I never would be, but I'd earned my place. Lucian was different too, less guarded, more open. He smiled more, and every time, it felt like a gift. One evening, he took me to the edge of hell, a cliff overlooking a sea of molten light. The air was warm, the sky a tapestry of red and gold. "This is where I came when I was first crowned," he said, his voice soft. "I thought I'd be alone forever." He turned to me, his golden eyes bright. "Then you fell into my world." I laughed, but it caught in my throat. "I didn't fall. You dragged me." He grinned, pulling me close, and for a moment, we were just two people, not a king and his consort, not a demon and a human, just us. I kissed him, slow and sure, and the world faded away. But hell wasn't done with us. A new threat loomed, rumors of a forgotten demon, older than Lucian, stirring in the abyss. We faced it together, not as ruler and subject, but as partners. The ring was no longer a burden. It was a bridge connecting us, letting me share his strength, his heart. We fought, we bled, and we won, but the victory wasn't in the battle. It was in what we'd built, a love that defied worlds, a trust that held against the dark. I still dreamed of Earth sometimes, of quiet nights and ordinary days. But when I woke, Lucian was there, his arms around me, and I knew I was home. Hell had shaped me, but love had saved me. I was Ethan, I was Majesty, and I was his. In the end, it wasn't about ruling hell or surviving its wars. It was about finding someone who saw you, all of you, and chose you anyway. Lucian and I stood on that cliff, hand in hand, the ring glowing between us. The demons called me Majesty, but to him, I was just Ethan, the man who'd accidentally stolen the king of hell's heart and given him mine in return.